Kristen Scott from Istituto Marangoni. I'm program leader for the 5 master's programs that various creative things, but primarily MA women's wear, fashion design women's wear. So I'm talking to you today about my research, Reinterpreting Luxury, New Perspectives on a Culture of Cloth. I could talk for hours about the
you have 8 minutes.
Evils of the fashion industry. So I'm going to sort of rush through that bit and cut to the chase for the project itself. But basically, part of my work, and it's evolved thinking through making, is considering what is really luxury today. What does luxury really mean today? And this, there we go. I would argue that this is not luxury, and this is something we see certainly in a lot of Western societies, people queuing up for a drop of a particular handbag. How is that luxurious? How is that special anymore? And, in the climate of Extinction Rebellion, Australia going up in flames, we can't carry on doing things the way we're doing. Luxury is as complicit in the problems we're facing as any other industry, any other part of the fashion industry. Sorry, I'm having a clicking thing. So I'd ask you all to consider, what do you value most in your life? What's the most rare and precious thing to you? Because that's true luxury. And what does luxury really mean to you today? And I would say, for me, probably mental space, time are the most luxurious things. So how does fashion respond to that, to create that new luxury? The stress problem. There's a huge epidemic of stress I'll speak about the UK, but I'm sure it's true of many other societies. 74% in 2018 said they felt overwhelmed and unable to cope. 18 to 24-year-olds report a rise in unhappiness, and a lot of it's about body image. Social media, obviously, is a contributory factor. There's a huge amount of research that shows that spending time in forests, walking amongst trees, improves people's health and well-being. It lowers the blood pressure, lowers your pulse, and lifts your moods. Even touching the bark of trees can lower the pulse rate and the leaves. And we're hardwired to have that affinity with nature. So that prompted some questions. What if we were to wrap ourselves in the bark of trees? What might that do for our health and well-being? And might that be a new form of luxury? So these are some of the research questions that all to do with exploring the full potential of tree bark in fashion. I'm not going to go through them all in detail. I'm working with a team of other people. There's Karen Spurge and a couple of others on the page from Istituto Marangoni, several people from Manchester Metropolitan University that more from the sort of sciencey, textiles technology side, and an artist, Ugandan artist and environmentalist who set up a project at Bukomansimbi where the project's based, and textile researcher and Fulbright scholar Leslie Underwood Robertson. So we're using a very multidisciplinary approach. We're taking Ugandan bark cloth, the cultural cloth of others, and examining it from 360 degrees to find out as much as we can. And in order to do this, we're using a model we call borrowed cloth. The idea is we take the cultural cloth, we borrow the cultural cloth of others. We find out, using our resources and the advantages we have, as much as possible about this cloth. We test it, experiment with it, analyze it, etc., and we return it to that community with the extra knowledge that's been generated and hopefully promotion for it in the form of new knowledge generated. And we do this in consultation with the community. It's not just, going off and thinking we know best. It is within a collaborative and consultative process. So we're working with the bark of the wild fig tree on the left there. This is a cloth that's been made by Ugandans for hundreds of years, probably since the 13th century at least. Here's a quick clip of Paul and Vincent stripping the bark off the tree. They can do this annually without harming the tree. They strip it, they wrap it in banana leaves for a week or so, and then take the leaves off and it starts to grow new skin. So So this particular species, Ficus natalensis, you can do that. And there's a picture, actually the one on the left is not my photo, but the one on the right is, of the tree being wrapped in banana leaves. Botha have a sort of nursery where they're encouraging the community to grow more trees. So when I was there last, I was able to plant some fig trees and palm trees. They boil the bark when it comes off the tree, and then they beat it, and then it becomes stretchy and pliable, and the beating action sort of felts the fibres, so it becomes quite soft, and sometimes little holes appear in it, and stretch it out in the sun to dry. It's a process that shows incredible stewardship of the land, of the environment, and they dye it black by burying it in mud. It's amazing. I was able to film this my last trip last August. So this is Paul burying it in mud for 3 days, and then it comes out a perfect uniform black. And it's an iron tannin reaction. The bark cloth is high in tannin, naturally, and the mud in that particular swamp is very high in iron, so that reaction turns it black. It doesn't fade, it doesn't wash out. It's amazing. And they cleanse it with the pulp and seeds of a wild pumpkin that's very bitter, you can't eat it, but it's like a detergent, so it cleanses the bark cloth completely of the smell of mud and any mud residue. There'll be a clip in a minute. I think I'll just get to the bit where he wrings it out. So this is something they been practiced. There we are. That's what it's like when it comes out. So we started to think about, okay, luxury. What is luxury? The conventions of luxury, lots of glitz and gold, lots of embellishment, lots of work, slow production. So our early samples were this kind of thing. We did some printing. Okay, that's a warning that I'm nearly over. Natural dye experiments of different sorts, vinegaroon, an old dyeing technique. We're starting to think about ayavastra from the Indian tradition, because we're using things like indigo, which has antibacterial properties. Bark cloth already has antibacterial properties, and mosquitoes don't like to bite through it either. So how can we enhance that? Can we transfer it to other things? This is an early garment, the first proposition garment, made a little cape. Then we're starting to think about the limitations of the cloth. You know, it can tear, so do we design within the limitations? Do we add volumes in an exaggerated way in places to accommodate those pressure points on the body? So these are some garments in the bark cloth. That last one's dyed in vinegaroon. Then finally, thinking about the waste from the garment making, how can we use that waste? So we started to experiment with bioplastics, making, I have my Saturday kitchen lab kind of thing with corn flour and agar, and I tried cassava flour as well, various things. So the scraps of bark cloth are shredded to make a biocomposite that becomes a leather substitute.